Speaking of names you don't recognize, I notice Herbert West has joined us.
Yes,
So,
that's me.
okay, well, that's great. That's great.
Let me introduce you. This is Christopher Thompson, one of your biggest fans.
Hey, Chris, the author.
Hello.
Carlos will be with us in a while.
Well, I'm going to interview you guys. I figured this would be the best way to avoid those questions that I always get asked. I'll just ask you guys.
Perfect.
We're so boring, though. You got to write Hellraisers. Are you kidding? We just watch. Who are we? We sit around judging.
No, plainly, you both do much more than just watch. So that is great, and congratulations with all your endeavors and whatever. Where are you both, by the way? Where are we? I know you're in Central Time and you're in Eastern Time. Where are we?
I'm in Texas, just outside of Austin.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm in Ontario, Canada, about an hour west of Toronto.
Nice.
And Carlos is in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
He'll be.
I was in Toronto a couple of times. Once for I can't remember if it was World Fantasy Convention or World Horror Convention. And there's a fantastic library there, the Judith Merrill Library, which is like one of the right. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and it's in it's right around the university, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's officially the biggest horror fantasy science fiction collection in public hands.
I think so. Yeah, it's
great.
Yeah, I was in it once and I could have spent days in there.
Yeah, no, exactly. They organized it from the convention and one of the librarians took us around on a tour, and you just sort of had to take it in at a wash. You know, it wasn't like, well, wait a minute, I need to spend a day in each shelf.
Right.
But it's fabulous.
Yeah, a lot of really, really nice first editions, and it's beautiful in there.
Yeah.
What year were you up for Fan Expo? Or whichever one you were up for, do you remember?
I think it was World Horror, and I think it was 2007.
Okay.
I think.
Okay,
yeah.
That's after I stopped going to a lot of the conventions, so that's why I missed it.
Yeah. Was it World Horror? Nearby again in 2010, because me and Glenn Hirschberg took the Rolling Darkness Review up there, but we didn't go to Toronto. You got to my Canadian geography is terrible because, of course, I just get on a plane and get off at the other end.
Right.
So wherever they drop you is where they drop you.
Yeah. So Nipissing University, is that Ottawa?
It's in the Ottawa area. Yes.
But both Toronto and Ottawa are in Ontario. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. So I was in the same territory then in 2000.
Yeah, there's about a 6-hour distance between the two, but yeah, same area.
Have you ever been up to Nipissing University?
I've never been to the university, but I have been up to the Ottawa area a number of times.
Okay, yeah. Because it's like it's right. It's on the edge of the fucking world.
Yeah,
it's like
it really
the bay
is.
There is like, oh, this is it. You know, next stop Antarctica or something.
Yeah, if you go any further, you're swimming.
Yeah, it was great. And
if you go a little further east, you're in Quebec.
Oh, is it that? Oh, okay. A little further east.
Well, an hour or two, but still.
But only an hour or two. Okay. Oh, I thought it was much further. Oh, it's Vancouver that's on top of California.
Yes, and that's on the other side of the country. Right. Yeah.
Toronto's sort of because we changed it. Detroit changed planes.
Yes.
Detroit,
yeah. So that'll bring you in through Windsor, which is in Ontario. So yes.
Yeah. I sound like I know a lot more about Canada than I actually
do. At that. You're a native.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you for poutine.
On behalf of Canada, you are most welcome.
Oh yeah. It was I'm infuriated that nobody told me about it in 2007. So I wasted that trip.
Oh no.
The second one in 2010, Glenn had been before, and he said, we got to go somewhere and get poutine. And you know, there's Irish white lightning is called poutine. So when he said poutine, I figured it was, this is bootleg distilled liquor, which of course I would be fully in favor of trying too.
Right.
But no, it was even more delightful.
Surprise, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was fantastic. Kimberly, do you know what it is if you haven't been to Canada?
I do know what it is, and it's one of my food things that I want to have next to beaver tail.
Yeah.
I have like a list. I'm ready.
Beaver tail. Well, sadly, I'm vegetarian these days, so I guess I'll never
It's dessert.
really get to know.
Yeah, beaver tail. It's actually it's a pastry.
It's like
It's
a
not
donut.
actually made from beaver tail.
Oh,
yeah, it's like a donut.
Not made from actual beavers.
No, it's like a
No.
big flat donut.
It's like a giant donut.
Oh God. Well,
we gotta go back to Canada.
So I was just going to say another trip is called for. Okay.
Yeah, they're
Just
you
need
get them usually in the Ottawa area. There's a number of places that sell them.
You need a full
Wow.
Canadian food tour.
Yep.
Sure.
That
And do they sell? Do they? I was going to try and impress you by remembering the name of the chain. What's the coffee shop? It's somebody's name.
Tim Hortons is the big one.
Yeah. We stopped at several of those on the way, but I didn't see any beaver tails for sale.
No, they're not available at all locations. They tend to be regional. They're usually more in the Ottawa area.
Right. Okay. Well, Kimberly and I both have something to look forward to next time we're in Canada. So.
Absolutely.
All right. And is this Carlos?
It looks like Carlos has made it.
It is Carlos.
I am sorry I'm late, guys.
You're not late.
You're not late. We've just been shooting the shit about poutine and
Poutine.
Yes.
You missed out on the delicious part of the conversation.
Well, I had a poutine a couple hours ago. So
Okay, so
man.
you're ahead of all of us then.
I knew I shouldn't have, but there was a place. I'm in Los Angeles. I don't know if you guys know that, but and there's a place in the Valley in Burbank which claims to sell poutine, and I avoided it for years because I thought it won't be, and then like an idiot, I yielded, and yeah, it's not. It was sort of like it looked like poutine. It was fries with a kind of white sauce on them.
Oh,
with
weird.
bits of cheese that weren't really curds. It was, I should have left it alone. Yeah,
it doesn't sound pleasant.
No.
Right. Well, I think, when you describe poutine to people who haven't had it, I'm not sure it sounds pleasant either. But as soon as they taste it,
Like, cheese and gravy. How can you say no to cheese and gravy?
Right.
Anything.
Right.
And who doesn't like fried potatoes? Come on.
Yeah. Well, this can be the food episode, right? We can just talk about.
You have no idea how amazing this is. I don't care what we talk about. This is great.
Yep.
I am honored to be talking to you, man.
But it is a pleasure to talk to all of you. Thank you so much for the invite.
We're really, really glad you're here and shocked that you accepted. And we know we're going to ask
I'm a cheap date. I'm a pushover. No, well, you asked so nicely, and it's seriously, it's really nice. As you get older, it's really nice to be reminded that people who weren't born when you did shit still get a kick out of it. It's like, oh, well, the least you can do is talk to them.
Right. And, we are losing so many people, and the news lets us know every day. It's depressing. And I want to
try being the same age as them, Kimberly. It's a lot more fucking depressing when it's like, wait a minute, he was 66? What the fuck?
We just want to talk to all of you and just glean everything from just every bit of your life that we can, because it's just not the movie. We're fans of every single person who's worked on them. Every single person, everything. We sit around dissecting it all. That's the level of nerd you're dealing with here.
My kind of people. That's great.
Which is why we don't mind hearing the same thing over and over again. Just the fact that you're here, we're just mind blown.
So
Like, are
it's
you kidding?
it's more like I've said before on interviews, and it's more that you can't quite believe I'm still alive. So it's more
No,
like a dog walking a tightrope. Like it doesn't have to be good. It's
No.
like, my God, it's a miracle. Look.
we can't believe you're talking to us. Who are we?
You're right. That's no.
We're
That's
some schmoes that buy movies and talk about them.
Well, I know you all do more than that, but even if that was all you did, that's great. That's our tribe, baby. That's our tribe.
That's right. A lot of us, we need you to get through life. Like, you know, it's hard out there. Come home, pop a movie in. We're good.
Oh yeah.
And we
well,
wanted-
I mean, exactly the same for me. It's like, and probably, I mean, given how young you are, it probably, I was going to say it was like I used to feel about Hammer movies, but it probably is exactly like that. The Hellraiser and Wishmaster movies are as old now as the Hammer movies that I used to like. You know, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, the Hammer movies were they were only 30 years old as well, which seemed like, so they were ancient history to me. None of you have to give your actual ages away should you not wish to, but were you born when the movies came out? Or
we're
you
older than you think, sir.
But I was watching
yeah.
I was watching Hellraiser since it came out, so I had an early start.
okay. That's fair. You started when you were 5.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. That, you know, that was the big shock for me when because we have slightly different classification ratings boards. We have slightly different rules for the rating boards in the UK. And when I saw Hellbound here in a theatre, there were 6-year-olds in the theatre with their parents. And I thought, what the fuck is going on?
Horror fans, there's no age. Our
No,
kids will
I
go.
completely agree with that. Don't get me wrong. I was used to, see, we used to have this, we had an X certificate when I was a kid, but it had no implication, like, you know, triple X here means porn or something. But the X just meant adults only. Like most grown-up movies, especially if there's like, you know, any sex or any violence would be X's. And so only 18-year-olds could see them. Which we were fine with, and I assumed an R was the same as that. And when and I saw, I mean, obviously, you know, I'd seen the movie several times. But when I went to see it for the first time in an honest to God theatre with an honest to God audience, it was like there were children in there because the R lets you take kids in. And I wanted to go up to him and say, a guy is going to slash himself to pieces with an open razor. Get your fucking kid out of here. My God.
And like it must have been such a nightmare back then too, like especially in the UK with like the whole video nasties thing that was going on, right? Like it was a job to get a movie
to
like
get
that.
them, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Whereas like here, it was like all we had to do was go to the local video store and just have a clerk that didn't give a shit, and it would just rent it out to anybody. Right?
That's right. Yeah, you thank God for weed smoking slackers. Hey, take what you want, dude. I'm busy.
There you go.
The local weed smoking slacker was how I watched every Hellraiser movie before Part 3, and Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Friday the 13th. It was the same video store. That's where I got them all.
That's great. So your generation has the same sort of affection and nostalgic affection for video stores as I do for movie theaters, I get. I mean, I'm sure you guys went and go to theaters as well. Yes. But you really like the video generation, right?
Yeah.
More than, yeah.
Yeah, we were the direct to video boom era in the late 80s and through the 90s when there was so much of the direct to video content, and a bulk of it was horror, because a lot of times horror wouldn't get a big release. It's not that there wasn't a following for it, it's that a lot of times they would look at it and they wouldn't see horror as legitimate cinema,
right?
So it wouldn't get a big promotion unless it was a big franchise like a Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or something. So a bulk of it came direct to video. So that was our market. So the video store was like heaven. Every Tuesday when new movies came out, we were guaranteed 3 or 4 horror movies that had never been anywhere else.
Right, sure.
Oh, and they wouldn't have many copies. They would have the one.
Yeah, one
and
or two
we would be
copies.
like, is it here? Is it
Oh,
here?
yeah,
I came the
right,
last 3
right,
weeks and was it here?
Yeah, exactly. Who has it? Where is it? It's late. Go
Right.
get it. I want it.
Yeah, do you have their address? I'll
Yeah.
nip round.
I'll go get it. That's right near my house. I'll go
if
grab
it's
it.
due today, I'll just hang around until they come.
Yeah.
I'll wait and freak them out when they walk in.
I'll stand by your return drop box. Do you have it? Where is it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, like it's and the difference of the generations too. It's like it would have been a lot easier for our generations to get copies of these on video than it would have been. Like I would have loved to have gone to the theaters and watched all of these, but it was even the ones that were in the theaters. It was harder to get in. Like, yeah, your parents could take you in if it was an R-rated movie, or you can sneak in if you bought a ticket for something else. But it was more of a chore to do that, like on a more regular basis. Whereas it was easier to go see horror like Hammer movies back in the 60s or 70s or whatever, right? So
no, exactly. I mean, it was fun. Listen, once the VHS boom happened, it was fantastic. I loved it. But the only downside of it was that movies then became first run only. Because when I was a kid and up to including a teenager, movies would regularly come back. Like I was still seeing shit made in the 50s they would put on cinemas, not like the big downtown super theaters, but first of all, this might be news to you, but you had local neighborhood theaters. Every neighborhood had a movie theater.
Yeah.
And the small local theaters sometimes they'd do a whole week of it, but always Sundays they would just do these weird, it wasn't like an official re-release or anything around the country, but they would just call the distributor and they'd get a couple of Hammer movies that were first shown 10 years before, and they'd screen them on Sunday. And so you could catch up. Like I saw Shane, the Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind in movie theaters. And even though I'm old, I'm not that fucking old. So, because local theaters just called distributors and got like single 35mm prints and ran them for a week, which was terrific. Not as terrific as having full access to everything, as you say, in the video store. But it was kind of nice that you could go and see these things.
Oh, absolutely. Like I long for that. I wish we could have had that experience, because it's like when some rare movie, like let's say Ilsa's playing at the theater 5 years, 6 years after it came out, it's like an event when it comes, right? Because there's no other way you're going to be able to see it. Like you can't just go rent it or just watch it on TV or on Netflix or whatever. It's an event. It's like in 2 weeks from now, I get to see Ilsa, and then you go and see it, and then you have your experience. Whereas now, like, and even in the 80s, we were more spoiled. It's like we can watch it at our leisure, right? As long as we can get a copy.
Sure. I mean, She-Wolf of the SS definitely came out on Laserdisc. Did it never get a DVD release?
I think it came out on DVD here. I still don't think we have Blu-ray now, but
sure. Well, it's not like it's the best looking movie in the world. So I really need a Blu-ray.
See, there's one, Carlos, that we don't need the 4K remaster of.
I beg to differ.
Well, it's weird. I mean, I have no dog in this fight yet because I don't have 4K, so I have no personal opinion. But there's a backlash against 4K right now going on in social media, right? There's a lot of people, I think it's the Road Warrior. There's a whole bunch of people posting screen grabs from the
Oh my God, that was my post.
Really?
Yeah, that was his post.
Holy crap, I've incensed the internet.
So maybe there's no fuss going on at all. It's just you. I'm sorry. I thought you were.
Well, you know what? If it's been spread around, then there's a fuss going on.
There you go. Yeah, every fuss has to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's an argument that Carlos and I have been having off and on for a few weeks anyway. I'm very much against 4K remasters of older movies. He's very much for them.
Without getting too into the woods for your listeners, although I'm sure your listeners are as fascinated with this shit as we are. I mean, remastering, of course, in principle, always sounds good. If you're remastering to pictorially match as best you can, but the complaint seems to be that there's actually like recoloring and regrading going on.
Mhm.
That same issue happened with Pet Cemetery recently. They remastered that for 4K, and in doing that, they retimed the color to be more like modern horror movies, where it's got like more of a darker palette. Whereas in the 80s, when it came out, it had like a more blue palette, which matched the tone of that era.
Sure.
And so
Oh, no, yeah,
people were pissed about that, which rightfully so. Obviously, you shouldn't be changing it. It's the same reason the Star Wars people get freaked out every time George Lucas
He
wants
shot
to tinker with the movies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And I agree. And it's weird, you know, when we certainly don't have to get into weeds about art versus commerce, but when an art form is pretty dependent on business money, as movie is, you sort of understand the other mindset of it's a product and the product needs to fit the marketplace to whom we are currently selling. Now, obviously, we don't agree with that because we're fucking nerds, but I understand it. Like people would say, well, you're not going to go and revarnish the Mona Lisa to make it look like a 20th century painting. And of course, you wouldn't, nor would you need to, because nobody's corporate profits are tied in to how the Mona Lisa is currently presented. Whereas with the movies, I guess they figure it's a product, the old ones still exist. I don't know. I suddenly sound like I'm defending them, and I'm not. But it's, you know, it's a tough call because
like I understand they need to make money, right? Like, so.
Right, and the fear is that if it doesn't look like they're constantly selling to theoretical 19-year-olds, and you know, I used to be a 19-year-old, you guys used to be a 19-year-old, and we are the market because we're insane and voracious. And their fear is that if they don't make it look like what 19-year-olds are used to seeing, that they'll take a hit, I guess. On the other hand, fuck them. You know, I don't know. I don't care. It's things should look like the makers intended them to look. Yeah,
exactly,
of course.
Exactly. And especially with 4K remasters, because you can digitally preserve them for future generations, right? Because who knows what can happen to the actual film prints. Like fires could happen, they could degrade it, whatever. So
shit, yeah, no, yeah, the digital storing, yes, of course.
Yeah, that I'm fully in support of and have no issues with.
Sure. Yeah, no, me too. Yeah, no, because all film will rot. I mean, this is a horrible realization. I mean, they look after them the best they can. You know, the studios still have, in most cases, they still have these big vaults, climate controlled, but celluloid is organic and it will decay. It won't decay like the silent movies decayed, you know, because they will blow up in your face.
Yeah, they were silver nitrate, both of them, right?
Right. But everything will eventually decay. And the great thing about digital is, yeah, it can all be wiped out with an electromagnetic pulse, but there's no generation loss. Just make another copy, make another copy, make another copy, and things get saved, I guess.
Yeah.
As long as our future reptilian overlords have the right hardware and play the software, otherwise we're all screwed.
Well, usually our complaints about horror is the business getting in the way of the actual art.
Sure.
We're always, well, not always, but sometimes very disappointed. And then we find out it was the business that ruined the final product. And now we'll never get to see what the artist meant for it to be.
Right.
And then we'll talk about it forever for no reason. But,
because it heals our wounds briefly.
It's
That's
true.
Why. Yeah. Because we take comfort. And I got to throw my usual caveat in here just at that point, because yes, everything you hear about the suits and the executives at film companies. It's all true. They are illiterate, venal assholes. But the people usually complaining about them are screenwriters or directors, occasionally actors, not so much. And I know a lot of screenwriters and directors. They're assholes too. It's like every tribe has terrible fucking people in it. So it's, yeah, you should reflexively assume all executives are assholes, but for God's sake, don't assume that all screenwriters and directors are saints, because they're not. So many pricks. And well, you know what? The proportion is probably about the same as in every other walk of life.
Yeah.
So just try and avoid the assholes and stick with the nice people.
Oh, for sure.
I think we're doing pretty good so far.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really want to get to a Hellraiser question, which you've probably heard
yes.
100,000 times before, and I'm
It's like-
really
It's
sorry.
like, oh God, the
But I
Hellraiser
really
questions.
want
Here
to
we go.
ask. I really want to ask.
No, ask away. Ask all the questions, and
Okay,
just don't say what's Clive really like.
no, I wasn't going to do that. That was not, and I wasn't going to ask how Doug is or any of that stuff.
I don't want to say how they are in the sense of their health, but it's like, what's he really like? Well, he's an asshole. Joke. Everybody listening, that's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Herbert,
I missed out on an opportunity, unfortunately, to actually meet Clive, and that's one of my worst memories of Toronto Fan Expo, and it's one of the reasons why I stopped going. But that's beside the point.
Well, he's, his health has been bad, as you know. But
yes,
he's doing them again, to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I don't know about Fan Expo specifically, but he is making personal appearances again at conventions, I think. So
yeah, I've seen a few videos that people have run and posted. He did was he at a couple of years ago, I think, before COVID, so about 3 years ago, I guess.
Right. I'm not sure if he's been back out since.
Yeah, there was was it in, I can't remember if it was in the UK or if it was in the States somewhere, but there was a whole
I don't think he goes to the UK.
Hellraiser.
He lives out here as well.
Oh,
but,
okay. So yeah, so it must have been then there, but there was a whole Hellraiser like reunion, and it was him and
oh yeah, I saw the footage.
Yeah, all of the guys
Nick
who played the
and
Cenobites
Barbie and
and
Simon. Yeah,
exactly, and that it looked pretty cool.
Sure.
Yeah, but I missed out on him. But anyway, that's that's outside of my question.
Okay.
So first of all, Hellraiser 3 was actually the first Hellraiser movie that I ever saw.
Okay.
And I did manage to actually get in to see that one in a theater, in a very small little theater out this way.
Right.
And then so I watched them backwards. So I went 3, 2, 1.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, well, that was the order in which I could find them. I'd seen 3 in the theater.
Sure.
The local video store only had Hellraiser 2. And so I had to go to another video store to find the first one.
Right. But it's interesting, just because, so in a way, they were becoming more intimate.
Yes.
You saw like the big Hollywood version.
Yeah.
Then you saw the expansive Some Landscape of Hell version, and then you went back to Chekhov with Gore. The first movie.
Yeah, to the tight, intimate, of that first one. So I did, yeah. So I saw them in reverse, which was an interesting way to see them. You're right. And then of course I saw 4 when it came out in theaters, even though like I had known a lot of the frou-frou that had gone on with the production of number 4.
Sure.
I remember seeing an interview with you in a magazine where you had somebody had asked if you had were coming back to do a 5th one, at which point you had said Dimension hadn't asked. So the assumption obviously being now, no, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But what I want to know is, did you have any kind of overarching plan had you been able to return to do further sequels in the franchise? And what might they have been if there was one?
Well, interestingly, I know this is a disappointing answer. No, because, but the reason is, again, I know I'm talking to my fellow nerd tribe members, hardcore people who know the ins and outs. So Clive hadn't been involved with Hellraiser 3 because he couldn't come to financial terms with Larry Coppin. Larry Coppin then passed the rights on to Miramax, who wanted Clive's name back on the picture. So Hellraiser 4, as it was going to be called, was the first time Clive and I had come up with the basic concept together since Hellbound. And both of us, we just assumed this was it. It was like, first of all, although there was the example of the Nightmare movies, and I guess the Friday I can't remember what numbers these other franchises were up to, but to movies, other than James Bond, we weren't used to like these long franchises. We were surprised that they let us make a third one, and we assumed that the fourth one, we assumed we'd wrapped it up. I assumed I'd wrapped it up with Hellraiser 3. And then when Miramax said we want to do 4, we were really, this is Clive and I am talking about, it was like, well, shit, what do we do now? So we conceived it as a kind of bookending framing for the trilogy, both prequel and sequel to the movies that had been made. And I mean, again, I apologize to people who are listening to this who've heard me talk before. I'll make it as quick as I can. Clive said, well, let's do 3 time periods. And it was going to be the present and Pinhead in space. But his the first time period in his head, he said, let's do a Jack the Ripper riff. Let's do Victorian London. And I said, I love the 3 time periods. I love the wraparound. But do you not remember, Clive, that in your story, The Hellbound Heart, you mentioned a toy maker called Le Marchand? Why don't we forget Victorian London? Why don't we start in pre-revolutionary France and tell the story of the toy maker? And then like the bloodline, and he said, that's the title, Bloodline. See, Clive was already thinking like an executive. That's the title. Cool business affair. So it was conceived as that, and I went in and saw Bob Weinstein, and we didn't really have a story. I literally just pitched him that. I said it's a framing device for the existing movies. It's both prequel and sequel, telling the story of the makers of the box, and it will wrap up with the complete end of Pinhead and the Cenobites, and we're done. And they said, great. And in fact, Bob and Miramax were fabulous to us all through development. They only turned into monsters when we actually made the movie, but that's a separate story. But to get back to your question, Chris, so I genuinely thought my job here was to wrap the thing up, was to deliver hopefully a satisfying prequel and sequel melange that would just like, tie a little bow on the Hellraiser movies. And although, I always understood that, as we talked about earlier, business is business. And I assumed there was, maybe a possibility that people might want to do more. But aesthetically, I was sort of emotionally and aesthetically done with it. And then the production nightmares happened. And by the end of it, Miramax fucking hated me and I fucking hated Miramax. so leaving aside highfalutin terms like aesthetically and artistically, I was done. It was also like, they are never going to hire me again. And if they did, I wouldn't fucking work for them. So no. So I've only revisited the Hellraiser mythos 1.5 times since then. I did a comic book. Actually, I guess the comic book story was before Hellraiser 4, so that wasn't subsequent. But I did do a story for an anthology, a prose fiction anthology that our friends Paul Kane and Maria Reagan put together called Hellbound Hearts, which were just, stories set within the Hellraiser mythos. So I wrote not really a Hellraiser story, but a kind of nod and wink at the Hellraiser stories called Prisoners of the Inferno, which was in. So that's been my only my only revisit. Oh, and just for the scholars and the nerds out there, the reason I call the story Prisoners of the Inferno is that my preferred one sheet for Hellraiser 2 is the Italian one sheet, because the credits are printed in white, so you can read my fucking name. On the American one sheet, it's blue on blue, so it's like, Jesus Christ, this is my first picture, and I can't even see my. But anyway, it's and you know, Italians sense of style. It's a good looking poster, very nicely designed, and the Italian subtitle is Prigionieri dell'Inferno, which translates as Prisoners of the Inferno.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, see, little trivia thing for you there.
Just when I thought I knew everything about Hellraiser, now there's a little tidbit of information.
So no, I didn't really think about other Hellraiser stories, and to be honest, until he did the Scarlet Gospels, I don't think Clive did either. You know, it was something beautiful, but something done, you know. And of course, Clive, who has never been backward in coming forward, made it very clear when he wasn't happy with the later sequels.
Yes, yeah.
He got into an online. None of us knew who Scott Derrickson was then, of course. He's obviously now he's an A-list director doing the Doctor Strange movies and other stuff, but. One of my first sort of online experiences, because I was a late adopter, was watching Clive and Scott Derrickson badmouth each other. This is all like, I don't know if it's pre-Facebook, but it was certainly pre-Twitter. So I think the war was conducted on message boards, if you guys even remember what message boards are. So, you know, Clive was not reticent in his opinion of some of the latest things, but I don't know, you know, maybe he liked some of them. My feeling was my mate Doug from my hometown was getting a paycheck to do these things, so I'm in favor of all the sequels, even though I haven't watched them.
Well, thank you for mentioning that too, because I mean, like, when Bloodline came out, I was fucking obsessed with that movie, and it was one of my favorites for a long time, for years. And I found it exactly like you said, a perfect bookend to the series. I was like, Hellraiser's done. They wrapped it up beautifully. I was amazed. And then when Inferno was coming out, the internet wasn't what it is today, so I didn't have much news on it outside of Fangoria. And when I saw it on the shelf, I'm like, what the fuck? Hellraiser 5? How is this even possible?
How is this possible? Like I say, I'm sure, I mean, given Scott Derrickson's visual skills, I'm sure Inferno must be a good looking movie, if nothing else. Although, I mean, not that he had it was direct to video, low budget. So it's not like he had a big budget to play with, but you know, he's got an eye, so it probably looked good.
Yeah,
it's fairly decent, actually.
Yeah, visually it is. It's a very well made, well structured movie visually. And I mean, it's also, what's really neat is Craig Sheffer, of course, is in it, which kind of almost makes it like a Nightbreed Hellraiser sort of crossover.
Right.
If you stretch your imagination a little bit, you know, you've got Boone in a Hellraiser movie.
Right. Yeah, that was my last visit to a Hellraiser set, I think, because I think Doug filmed the other ones not in town. Am I right that like
Romania, 6, 7, I think, is 8. Where they filmed the later ones.
Yeah,
a lot of them got shot in Romania, and then he wasn't on for everything after the 8th one.
For the last 2, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So so I went down to visit set, which I would have done anyway, just say hi to Doug. But also, I hadn't seen Craig since we did Nightbreed. What, 4-5 years earlier? What year was Inferno?
About 2000.
Yeah, it was late 90s, really? Early 2000. Yeah.
Oh God.
Was it as late as 2000? It might have been, because there was a large gap between when Bloodline came out and when Inferno finally dropped.
Right. Yeah, Bloodline was 96. I get Wishmaster and Bloodline. Bloodline was 96 and Wishmaster was 97. Is that right?
I think. Yeah.
Oh, so there was that much of a gap.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Jesus. So yeah, so it was nearly a decade then since I saw Craig when we were doing Nightbreed at Pinewood, yeah.
Were you ever cheesed that they never brought Barbie back for any of the sequels?
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because, like, well, as I say, I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, Miramax would not have phoned me. So, although perhaps they wouldn't have put it together if they just thought, let's find the guy who played Barbie and bring him back. And then, much to their surprise, they'd learn it was me. No, although if somebody had the bright idea of doing that, I probably would have been more likely to say yes to that than to the idea of writing one. Yeah, that might have been fun. Also, I've made this joke before, but I will make it again. Sadly, they would save money because I no longer need the fat suit. I've grown to be the same size that they pretended I was when I was Barbie. So
we appreciate the authenticity.
there you go. I've been building to this. I should call them now and say, I've finally achieved Barbie fighting weight. Just get the barbed wire and the flame, and I'm ready to
Bring me back for Hellraiser 11. I'm ready now.
Right.
And for Wishmaster, like, did you have a grand scheme for that one? Like, were you planning on like a long series going forward with that?
No, definitely not, because unlike some gloriously optimistic fellows or fellowettes, I just assume you're just lucky if you get one of the buggers made, So I'm sort of lying for humorous effect in the sense that Bob Kurtzman, who directed it, and we talked a little about an idea for a sequel, and we thought that if they were going to do one, they would come to us, because I created the franchise and Bob got every horror movie living to be in it. So, we figured they should have owed us, but they did not. So we didn't. But it wasn't like we were, praying and wishing and hoping that would happen. So no, Wishmaster was written just as a one-off, and I've said this before, and I should be clear that I can't really claim that I was as conscious of what I'm about to say as it sounds, as I make it sound. But I think subconsciously I probably was, and I think we all were. It was a kind of farewell kiss to monster character horror movies, because the new waves were happening. Scream had already happened. Blair Witch was about to happen. Torture porn was on its way. So the Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, Pinhead, Michael Myers, that school was taking a recess. Everything had come back. Everything is cyclical, but so perhaps not as consciously as I imply, but unconsciously at least there was a sense of, well, here's one last character monster movie for us to enjoy, and here's everybody from all the other ones. Like a sort of, it was like a rap party. It was like a graduation party. Yeah. Like I stuck around to graduate. But it was there was a sense of that it was like a little Grand Slam one-off. And again, don't get me wrong, we're all whores. If they had called me and Bob and said, would you like to be paid to do Wishmaster 2? We probably would have said yes. But they didn't. So but we had a party with Robert Englund and Kane Hodder and Tony Todd and Reggie Bannister and Angus Scrimm doing the voiceover for us at the beginning. I'm missing people out now. Now, I'm going to stop there. And everybody else.
Oh, wait, that was Angus Scrimm who did the voiceover. Holy crap! Sorry, I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah,
I feel so bad now. I didn't even know that.
That was the cherry on the cake for me, because obviously that wasn't. Obviously, the voiceover was written. I'd written it as the first page of the script, obviously, but we didn't film it because it was a voiceover. So the movie was in the can, and we just needed that narration. So I'd already had the thrill of Freddy saying my dialogue. Oh my God, Jason saying my dialogue. And then they call me from live and say, we've got Angus Scrimm to do the voiceover. And it's like, boom, the dance card is full. We got the tall man. All right. So it was great, but it, and it was really annoying that in no way did I churlishly refuse to go. It was just like, whatever it was, I think something else was. Anyway, I didn't meet Angus, which I regret to this day, because I'm trying to think, we shot it up in Chatsworth, but I think he did his voiceover much more locally to me. And I could have gone down to sit with Bob while Angus did the recording, and life got in. It was just like, for some reason I did. It wasn't a big deal, it wasn't like I stood him up, or he doesn't know the hell I am. But I wish now that I'd gone and been able to shake the tall man's hand. That would have been great.
And you mentioned that being the end of the movie Monsters as the marquee, which kind of sucks, but we are getting back to resurrecting most of them.
Right.
They're even talking about Jason coming back for a new big one, and that's one of the main ones that they haven't touched in like 2 decades now. And it's like, I wish they would bring the Djinn back. Like, that is such a cool monster character. It's like, let's have a reboot or requel or whatever, and like, let's get that guy back.
Well, did you not see Wonder Woman 84? Because that was that was basically a remake of Wishmaster, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, no.
Actually,
no, but I mean, thank you for saying that. And it allows me to, I should have said, what was terrific about Wishmaster is that we got Andy, who, obviously had not been a horror movie guy. I should bite my tongue. Like, for all I know, he'd done small parts in other horror movies. I don't think so, though. But he was terrific. And, he really held his own. I mean, not that Robert was playing Freddy, not that Kane was playing Jason, not that Tony was playing Candyman, but he held his own with those actors, and it was great. So it was like, we did. We lucked out in getting a guy who could live up to those people. As I've said before as well, I'm so stupid that I didn't talk Doug into flying out to do a day's work, because the one guy we don't have in there is my guy. Well, Clive's guy, but my adopted son, Pinhead. We didn't get him in. I would have bought him a plane ticket myself if I'd thought about it.
Andrew Divoff.
Either way, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. He made that role, like, he made that character a menacing character. And
sure.
It was a character that could just as easily have been played for laughs.
Sure.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, like they continued with the 4 movies to diminishing returns, of course, but like, even the second one doesn't come as close in quality to the first one, but Andrew being in it just raises it, makes it fun still. Yeah. And then by the time you get to the 3rd and 4th, he's not there, and it's just, what am I watching anymore, right?
Right.
Was it even the same guy in 3 and in 4? Like, I think they switched actors between movies.
Yeah, I think
I'm not sure that's because I sound terrible. I haven't seen them either. But
you're honestly not missing much.
I'm pretty sure they filmed them back to back, which would suggest they did use. I believe. Oh, the reason it's lodged in my head, the difference was Andy played Demarest in human form and wore the suit. I think in 3 and 4, I apologize to the actor if I get his name wrong. I think his name is John Novak.
Yeah,
Is the
that's him.
guy in the suit? But weirdly, isn't it Sean Connery's son who plays the human form? It's definitely not the same guy. I know it's John Novak in the suit. I think it's Jason Connery. I think it's Sean Connery's son.
Jason Connery he was in it as who? Professor something.
Yeah, because I don't think it's Nathaniel Demarest. I think it's a different human form, but I think he's the guy that becomes the Jinn.
Professor Joel Barash, which I think you're right. I think that's
a ridiculous name. They had Nathaniel Demarest sitting right there. Nathaniel Demarest, even more ridiculous.
Yeah, and yes, John Novak was the Jinn.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, yes, and they did shoot them back to back. So it would be very odd if it hadn't been the same people.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they couldn't have brought Andrew back, because he raises those movies up.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, all good actors do. I mean, that's the thing. If I've been very lucky to have Doug speak my line. I mean, also all the actors that play human characters as well. But we're specifically talking about actors who are willing to put makeup on, big 3 hours in the chair monster makeup on. And sometimes you don't get a high caliber of actor, because often a high caliber actor will think, I'm not sitting in a fucking makeup chair for 3 hours. So you sometimes get people who aren't great in the makeup, but all the people we've already mentioned, obviously the icons of the 80s were fantastic. And I was extremely lucky to have Doug and then Andy deliver those lines, because you can write fancy schmancy or funny dialogue till the cows come home. If the guy selling it, the guy or girl selling it, doesn't sell it, then it just sounds ridiculous. And both Doug and Andy have, and it's really threading a needle, because what you don't want is ridiculous bombast or pomposity. I'm going to pretend it's King Lear. But you also don't want somebody sneering at the material or thinking it's silly. And both Andy and Doug and Robert and Tony, but I'm talking about people I've had the experience of. In other words, I know how bad those lines are because I wrote them. So I have direct experience of seeing them saved by, as I say, it's a real needle thread job, because it's like, you don't want to be like some bad Shakespearean asshole, and you don't want to be glib or sneery, but they both bring, along with a certain degree of self-aware, not humor, but a sort of willingness that they know we are, what should we say? We're making opera here, not kitchen sink drama. So they know you got to play it big. It's stylized. It's Baroque. It's operatic. But they both of them root it with a sort of gravitas as well. And that's a rare talent even in good actors. So full tribute to Doug Bradley and Andrew Devoff, in case you joined us late. They're great.
Especially
and
guys
one or
like...
both of you is listening. We love you and come on the show.
But
if they call me and ask if you guys are all right, I will give them the thumbs up, I promise.
Nice.
Excellent.
By the way, they never listen to podcasts, but if they do, I will.
On the off chance that they do one day.
Sure.
I'm not convinced anyone does. Somebody is. But I don't know anybody who listens to podcasts. I got to be honest.
No, yeah, people do. But some of it is generational, because this is going to sound terrible because I don't think you guys put yours up on YouTube, but for people my age, it's easier when they're on YouTube. because it's just like I can play it on my television. So I don't have to work magic with my iPhone and put my earbuds in and walk around. But I think anybody under the age of 97 does listen to podcasts. Podcasts are huge, aren't they? It's just the great thing about it's like with books and movies now and records. We can all make them. The democratization of technology allows everybody to do everything, which is great. But the downside of it is that it's splintered into 1,000 audiences, and sort of everything is niche, and it's difficult sometimes to grab. It makes you want to go back to there was only 3 networks, so you get 20 million people watching. But I think the pluses definitely outweigh the minuses, and the fact that guys like you can make the podcast, and there it is, and it's in exactly the same medium and with potentially the same reach as a podcast made by CBS. It's just there. It's like when you use the new print on demand technologies or whatever to make books. It's like it used to be back in the dim medieval days of the 1970s, that like there were real books. But now if you're virtually browsing on Amazon, it doesn't matter if something's published by HarperCollins or by your mate in the flat next door. There it is with a good looking cover right online on Amazon. A book is a book and you just buy it. So it's fantastic that these things can get to people. But as I said, but the disadvantage is you can sometimes get micro audiences. My friend, the great ghost story writer Glenn Hirschberg, he and I used to do this live show every year, the Rolling Darkness Review. And when lockdown happened, we thought, let's start a YouTube channel and we'll put readings of our stories up on YouTube. And we very enthusiastically did it for a couple of months. And I'm a sucker, I would just keep doing it for the pleasure principle anyway. Glenn was more pragmatic. And after 2 months, he said, we've got 14 people looking at these things, which was true. It's like you go to YouTube and it's like number of views, 7, number of views, 14. I think one of them got in, oh my God, 31 people watch this one. But yeah, it is, it can be disheartening, but we must press on, assuming that one day our genius will be recognized and people will appreciate it more.
So, what's this YouTube channel name? What's it called?
Oh, it's called The Rolling Darkness Review. Oh yeah, please subscribe. We've only got 33 subscribers. Make it look good. You're under no obligation to watch any of them. Just subscribe.
just subscribe, please. That's
just
all
so
I
the
want.
numbers look better. Come on. Yeah, it's just the Rolling Darkness Review was a much more elaborate show when we did the live show. This is just story readings. It's just me reading my shit to camera and Glenn reading his shit to camera in our respective lockdown homes. But yeah, it's great that people can have their own YouTube channels, their own podcasts. It's fantastic. So the pluses of the democratization definitely outweigh the minuses. But
I agree, and eventually I am gonna actually put ours on YouTube. I just haven't done it yet.
Life gets in the way. I understand.
It's true.
Sure.
Also, then I have to show my ugly mug.
Well,
yeah, there's that
I'll just
too.
put the audio on with the background.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that when I say I'm literally talking as an old man on his couch. This is what I mean by it's on YouTube. I can just watch it on my TV. It doesn't have to be visual. People, there are podcasts that go up, but you've got this great graphic, the Macabre-ish podcast graphic. So you just slap that up. You don't have to include your no doubt beautiful faces, though you could. But no, I'm perfectly happy to quote marks watch an audio only podcast. As I say, it's just the convenience of it being on YouTube,
That's
which I think
true.
only applies to people in the home, in this retirement community that we all live in.
It's interesting that you say that because I was thinking of starting YouTube channels and stuff, and I've always gotten the advice that it's not like YouTube is not as popular anymore as it used to be, because with podcasts, people can
Sure.
just listen to it on their commutes and stuff like that. But it's like in the last couple of years, that's all I ever hear about is people talking about YouTube channels. So how true is that?
Yeah, well, I think, well, first of all, absolutely in no way giving you guys advice. You clearly know what you're doing. But my, for what it's worth, philosophy on this is whatever medium you can deliver your shit in, deliver your shit. So, you know, if by all means, make sure the 22-year-olds are listening to it on their iPhone with their earbuds. But you'll probably get a lot more, you probably get a lot more 65-year-old eyes and ears on your show on YouTube, because I think it depends. But if it's an easy thing to do, it's like saying we'll only put the album out on vinyl because we're purists.
Right.
It's like, well, fuck that. Put it out on vinyl and put it out on cassette and put it out on DVD.
That's right.
So yeah, so I would encourage you to do that without in any way putting any pressure on you. But if I don't see a YouTube channel going up in the next 3 months, you'll be hearing from me.
This is the #1 place for Macabre's cults, classics, and horrors. For synopsis, reviews, and news, go to macabres.com. Thank you for listening. Signing out until the next one.